to another edition of Thunderdome. We have reached 3.3, everybody. 3.3, the 6 constitutional principles. So, follow along, grab your exit tickets, and let's get started. So, principles of the Constitution, these are ideas that make the government of the United States work. There's 6 of them. We'll go through each of them. It's what makes our government a model for others around the world. Once we did this and we created our Constitution, a lot of people followed suit. And it is influential throughout the world that it's a living document and it can change. So you'll see this as we go through these. So number 1 is popular sovereignty. And that's pretty much where we understand that the power belongs to the people. So a republic in which power belongs to the people. That's mentioned in Article 4. So the people hold the power and give the power to government. Now, does it seem that way to us necessarily? Maybe not. But it is supposedly that way. We vote people to represent us. We vote people to lead us and all that kind of stuff. So the power actually does rest with us. The weird thing is, and I've said this a couple times, is society and the people, they change faster than the government. So our ideas and everything like that, it's a trickle down. So it starts grassroots, and then it becomes something else as you get higher and higher up into government. Government's going to change pretty much a lot slower than society. Governments should draw their powers from the consent of the governed. That's another thing that's mentioned in Article 4. So it's expressed through elections, majority vote, and it's all implied by the first 3 words of the Constitution, we the people. All right, number 2, rule of law. We've heard of this before. We talked about it whenever we talked about the Magna Carta. So this is limited government. Government should be strong, but not too strong. So the government can only do what the people allow it to do. So what is rule of law? The law applies to everyone, even those who govern. So again, when you think about rule of law, I always think about this situation where the president gets pulled over by a police officer, and the police officer says, "Oh, hey, Mr. President, how you doing? You were going 55 and a 35. And instead of saying, "But you're the president, we'll let you off," they'd say, "Here's your ticket." That would be rule of law. That nobody is above the law, not even the people who govern.
They can just write it.
Yeah, they could pardon themselves, right?
Yeah.
Only if it's a federal offense.
Ah.
Number 3, separation of powers. Again, we've talked about this already, but split of authority / power among 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. And this is for one reason only, and that is that nobody or no entity is super powerful in our government. So it protects against one person or group from becoming too powerful. Very simple. Number 4, checks and balances. Each branch has the ability to check or limit the power of the other branches. So this is, again, another thing that just doesn't allow one branch to get too powerful. It's possibly hard to see, but there's a list of checks and balances right there in that little graphic. But it shows what the legislative holds over the executive branch, what the executive branch holds over the judicial, and what the judicial holds against both of those. It really, everything is separated and everything can be checked. So even if Congress passes a law, who has to sign the law into action? You guys know? It starts with a P, ends with a resident.
President.
President. I don't know how you figured it out, but you did. Good job.
That was hard.
So that's what we're talking about with checks and balances. And then we have number 5. Well, there's the checks and balances all close up. Look at it. There we go. So you can see what each holds over the others. Then we go to 5, federalism. We've already covered this as well. It is pretty much dividing government between states and federal or national government. So powers of government are shared between the state level and the federal national level. This helps government remain more responsive on the state and local level to the needs of the people. But you have to remember the supremacy clause, which was our exit ticket last time we were together. The supreme law of the land is the federal law. Okay? So whenever a state's law disagrees with the federal law always wins. Powers of the Constitution, so specifically grants to only the federal government. Those are called one of three things. So these all mean the same thing, okay? Enumerated powers, express powers, and delegated powers. Those are specifically listed in the Constitution, and it gives power to the federal government. You can see some of these to the left here. So maintain army and navy, declare war, coin money, regulate trade between states and with foreign nations, make all laws necessary for carrying out delegated powers. Okay, those are all national, federal powers. Then you go to the bottom, okay, it says powers of the state government. Those are called reserved powers. So you conduct elections, you establish schools, you regulate business within the state, establish local governments, regulate marriages, assume other powers not given to the national government or denied to the states. And then you have the exit ticket. Yeah.
How can some laws be like how can like marijuana be legal in some states but not on national level? But like if supreme power is in there.
Okay, so the question was from the class, Chris said, how can marijuana be legal in some states but illegal federally, and how can it still be sold because of that?
Yeah.
A loose interpretation or a loose guidance of carrying out the laws. So under President Bush, all right, so from like in the early 2000s, some states had medical marijuana at that point, and you could sell it if you had a medical marijuana card. So California was one of those states, Colorado, okay? It wasn't recreational, it was just medical. And in doing so, you know, their state laws said medical marijuana is appropriate, it's okay. But the federal law said, no, it's not. And George Bush, being a Republican at the time, had very strict laws on that. He sent FBI agents, federal agents into California and Colorado and Washington State, and he raided the dispensaries of medical marijuana, taking all of their goods and all that kind of stuff in the process. He was strict about those laws, the federal law. Then Obama came.
He was pretty loose.
And he was pretty loose. Trump was pretty loose about it as well. He didn't go into these states and take it or whatever. And you know, of course, Biden's going to be pretty loose with it as well. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's done. I mean, if they wanted to, they could go in tomorrow. And every single person in California selling recreational or medical marijuana knows this. They know that the federal government could come in today and take away everything. But they still choose to do it. So.
Well, they didn't buy it.
Okay, so powers given only to the state, they're called reserve powers. And here's the exit ticket question. Powers shared by both the federal and state governments are called concurrent powers. So, shared powers, they enforce laws. They establish courts. They can borrow money, protect the safety of the people. They build roads. They collect taxes. You know, all of that is shared. Okay, and that is mentioned in the Constitution. So concurrent powers is the exit ticket. All right, now we have number 6, flexibility, which is probably the coolest part of the Constitution. The Constitution is flexible. It may change with society over time. The Constitution was written in the 1780s, okay, over 200 years ago. It has to change, right? We don't live in that world anymore. And it has to change even more from what we experience right now. Again, it probably should have already changed, because we probably have some better ways to do voting and all that kind of stuff these days. But again, it's going to take a while to do it because society changes faster than the Constitution. But the Constitution eventually catches up. So, how do we change the Constitution? It's called amendments. We've had 27 of them. The first 10 were pretty much immediate, and then after that, it continued and continued and continued. The last one that was passed, the last amendment, was the 27th Amendment. It was in the early 90s, and it basically said that congressmen and women can't give themselves raises, which is good. Okay? So, different circumstances may cause the Constitution to change. The best example is prohibition. So the 18th Amendment said alcohol is illegal federally. And then the 21st Amendment repealed that. So there are two ways to change the Constitution. We'll look at them really quickly. So interpretation, this is something pretty interesting when it comes to the Constitution. You could be a loose interpreter or a strict interpreter. And this is really important when it comes to the judicial branch. So necessary and proper clause, also known as the elastic clause, it gives Congress the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry out its duties. So even though it might not be mentioned necessarily in the Constitution, this elastic clause gives Congress the ability to do whatever they want, okay? As long as they are, making all laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry out its duties. That kind of gives them almost unlimited power. That's why the legislative branch is known as it's pretty much the highest power of government that we have. They can do the most. So this allows Congress to stretch its powers beyond those specifically listed in the Constitution. It's also known as implied powers because they're not listed, they're just implied. So we have loose interpretation versus strict interpretation. Loose interpretation, Congress can make any laws not specifically forbidden. And then strict interpretation, Congress can only make the kinds of laws mentioned in or by the Constitution. The Supreme Court has the final authority on interpreting the Constitution. And then actions by Congress and the President, as well as custom, which is just precedent, have changed the interpretation of the Constitution. So it's almost how you read it. You see this in religion a little bit too, If you see, you read the Bible, okay, there it is, Bible. But there's different interpretations of the Bible, right? You could read one certain passage and feel something or whatever, and then see the opposite. Or anything else, any religious text you could do that with. You know that you can interpret things differently with a different type of viewpoint, different type of life experience. That's what we're talking about here. The Constitution does the same thing. We can read it strictly, or we can read it loosely. All right, we've already kind of gone over this, but amending the Constitution, there's two ways to do it. So this is in Article 5 of the Constitution, so the formal amendment process. So we have choice A, which is a proposal of 2/3 of both houses of Congress, and then ratification, which is just approving it. One, you'd need 3/4 of the state's legislatures, or two, you need 3/4 of special state conventions. And then we have choice B, which is a proposal by a national convention called at the request of 2/3 of the 50 state legislatures, and then ratification, again, it moves to 3/4. So 3/4 of the state legislatures or 3/4 of the special state conventions. That might sound confusing to you. It's not too bad. This amending the Constitution graph is probably something that you need to check out before we take the test for Unit 3 or the quiz for Unit 3. And just make sure you have the understanding that there's two ways to get it done. And it pretty much always starts off with 2/3 of something and ends with 3/4 of something else. So it actually takes a lot to change the Constitution. All right, here's some political cartoons. GOP, I hate big government. The exit ticket is concurrent powers. This is kind of just simple stuff here. 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Again, if all 3 are pretty much run by the same, or have the most power by the same political party, a lot of things get passed in one certain direction. And then good shot, Justice Scalia. Yeah, basically saying that judicial branch can swing the scales of justice. And then, ooh, that's a good one. It's like the Patriot Act, right?
Upside down flag.
Yeah, pretty much saying that your freedoms aren't really free. They can look at anything that you do if they want. All right, and then we're done with that. Okay, now, what should we do? If we play CNN 10, we're not going to be able to finish the video. So should I start the video first?
We wouldn't be able to finish the video anyway. If you said it's 50 minutes.
It's 52 minutes.
Then yeah, it's already 3 o'clock.
All right.
2:52.
It's 2:57.
Talking about 2:52.
This iPad says 2:57.
That's wrong. 2:52.
Yeah, it's 2:52.
You need to fix your iPad, bro.
There's an iPad.
We still won't be able to finish it.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to finish it anyway.
And I'll never even be able to get there because I can't see my mouse right now.